Where's the wand? I don't know where the wand is. Where's the wand? Where's the wand? I don't know where the wand is. You put that gun down. You put that gun down. Now, here's the thing. This script also throws in a lot of F-bombs in there throughout the entire movie. There is an absurd amount of F-bombs, and it feels like this movie's trying to be edgy, and it's just coming off silly. Especially,
It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
But for now, we must talk about Bright, David Ayer's new film. David Ayer, of course, the man behind the now Oscar-nominated Suicide Squad. Oscar-winning Suicide
can't forget.
Squad. And
DC's got one over Marvel. What's up?
Indeed. And also he directed, which I almost forgot he directed for a minute, but I loved it too, is End of Watch.
Yes.
You know, he did direct
Fury and Training Day to be like, I think it's like most notable film.
Yeah, he wrote Training Day. He didn't his first.
Oh, he wrote it. Okay.
Yeah, he didn't start directing until like the mid to late 2000s. You know, he wrote Training Day. He wrote the original Fast and the Furious. The original meaning the 2001 movie. Not technically the original, but the original of the franchise. And then he also directed Sabotage and Fury. And I saw Fury, never saw Sabotage.
I saw Fury.
So
Never saw Sabotage either.
I've seen a good chunk. I've seen a good chunk of David Ayer's. Also written by I'm gonna be name dropping him a lot though, and it's gonna be more for the bad than for the good. It was also written by Max Landis, who is the son of course, John Landis, the acclaimed film director. Max Landis has written a plethora of movies. He's written Chronicle, that movie directed by Josh Trank from a few years ago. He wrote American Ultra. He wrote Victor Frankenstein. What's funny is he's doing an American Werewolf in London. He's actually working on a remake of an American Werewolf in London, which was the movie his father directed. You know, which is very strange. But we got a lot of strange things to talk about. That doesn't even scratch the surface of
the only movie
Bright.
I've seen him write is just Chronicle, and now this.
Yeah.
And I like Chronicle. I thought Chronicle was like a lot of fun.
You never saw American Ultra?
I never saw American Ultra. That was the one I did want to see though.
Yeah, I never watched Victor Frankenstein, but I don't think a lot of people did.
Oh, I didn't. Never mind. I remember seeing that now.
Yeah,
it was on HBO one night, and I turned it off like halfway through.
That I did not watch. You want to give like a plot rundown of Bright? You want to try to kind of talk about and piece together this world, because there's a lot going on here. It's not the easiest thing to summarize. I can help you out if you need.
Okay, so basically this is kind of set in a world where like mystical creatures live with a bunch of people. Orcs and elves exist in a world with us, basically on Earth, like in LA. And basically the high creatures basically have a class system. So the elves are kind of like the highest people in the class system, and the orcs are in the bottom, and then I would say humans are in the middle. And you know, some humans can be higher or lower, of course, but basically that's kind of it. And basically what this is that Will Smith is paired up with the first orc cop. That's right?
Yep.
Yeah, because they kind of made a big deal of it in the trailers, but not really in the movie that much. So he's paired up with the first orc cop, and they basically go and investigate this one call one night, this one disturbance call, and it leads to finding a magic wand, which I guess in this world is basically the equivalent to like a nuclear weapon, I guess. It's like anybody who gets their hands on this is basically just like it can rule the world, basically. And they basically need to keep this magic wand away from this one dark elf. Yep. And basically...
Tika, played by Lucy Fry.
Yeah, Tika. They got to keep it basically away from this dark elf while helping this other elf played by... what's her name? The original girl with the dragon tattoo. Rooney Mara, right? Not Rooney Mara. I'm blanking on her.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name right now.
Naomi Rapace.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Her name's
Layla.
Layla, yeah.
That's who it is. Yep.
So yeah, Will Smith, Joel Edgerton, who is the orc cop he's paired up with, named Nick, and Will Smith is Ward. Basically, like just running throughout the town the entire night while people are chasing them. Each person that's chasing them has their own like need or desire for the one that they're trying to hide, basically. That's the best I could put together, honestly, because this movie throws a lot at you.
It is. For a first movie, for a movie in what is hoping to now be a fairly long franchise, I think you can say, if it winds up, churning out. This is also what Netflix is calling their first blockbuster. This is what they're calling. This is like the movie that it's marketed as like their first foray of blockbusters, or like a big budget movie, because it's a $90 million movie that could have realistically went to theaters. The only thing that I can say though is in a year that gave us The Mummy, Jumanji, Justice League, Power Rangers, it fits right in.
Yeah.
It fits right in with that kind of quality standard, in my opinion, at least. This is a strange thing. I mean, this really is. And there's a lot to get into here, because this movie is essentially, I boiled it down to kind of three facets with this thing. It's kind of like a racial parable, about like racial discrimination and like injustices and stuff. It's also kind of like a cop drama, okay, in a way.
Very Training Day.
Very Training Day-esque, in terms of like, and I haven't seen Training Day in years, but I even got like the vague remnants of it with the way that like Will Smith
With treating Joel Edgerton.
and like it reminded me even more of like Bad Boys, the kind of tone it took, if you remember that movie, those two movies. And then the third thing that this is like is that it kind of wants to be like a Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings kind of fantasy.
Yeah,
with
the
like
mashup everybody was wondering. What everybody wanted.
With magic and like mysticism. There's a lot in this thing, and it's about 2 hours long, so it doesn't have a ton of time to kind of expound upon this, and it's already got a sequel coming out. So you can kind of see the direction they want
I think
with this.
Netflix already was just gonna greenlight a sequel no matter what at this point. Honestly, they kind of knew like. Even like the bad press that this was getting from like reviews, they kind of just knew like, well, do they really lose any money from this, honestly, since people just pay subscription base?
That's true, and like that's the other thing I've noticed too. And we could talk about like even the politics of this too, in terms of like the optics for Netflix and stuff. But like the thing is too is it's such a gray area on like what to call a Netflix movie success.
Yeah,
it's because it's like, again, they can't make money
other than buzz. That's it.
Yeah, really. I mean, they can't make money in the most conventional way. What they say they just came out with this today, so I'm glad we kind of waited so we can get this number. It said that according to Nielsen estimates, Bright was seen by 11 million U.S. viewers across its first weekend, which I guess is good. You know what I mean? I guess that's really. I mean, that is pretty.
That
high.
is pretty good.
I
yeah.
mean, I think one of the most record break. I think like the debut of Stranger Things, like the second season, was over 15 million people watched.
I believe it.
So that's high. I mean, it really is high. Now, could this thing have gone to theaters and made money? I don't know. Maybe it could have maybe broken even, So that's the kind of gray area you have with this sort of template, though. It's like,
it does help that no one had to, like as you said, no one had to put on pants to go
that's
see
what
this
I always
movie.
say. That's what I always say. What I said though is like just from the way that how I responded to this, I said if somebody should now go to click to watch Bright, it should say, you also have time to watch and like list about 5 or 6 better movies, because I mean, of course, I mean, Netflix has had some misses in the past, they really have. And I think, and again, I know we're kind of dancing around just like the, specifics of this thing, but I mean, if you look at like the other stuff that they've come out with just in terms of critical reception, I haven't seen these 2 movies, but just in terms of critical reception, like you had Brad Pitt's movie War Machine, you had Ricky Gervais's Special Correspondence, and like these movies, again, they did not get great reviews.
Yeah.
A Very Murray Christmas, that Bill Murray special.
I heard that one's okay.
I didn't like it very much. I mean, I'm not a big fan of like those meta actor things either, and you know what I mean? So
yeah, I heard like it's like, hey, you better like enjoy it. Just be like, look, guys, it's George Clooney with
so there's that element.
Like the whole thing, basically.
And it's Sofia Coppola too, so there's that element too, and whether or not she's very divisive directress. But I think it really shows you like you need to have a strong story, and like I want you to kind of chime in on this too. I don't think Bright doesn't have a strong story. I think it doesn't have really much of an idea of how to like adequately implement it.
No, it doesn't. The entire time, like I'm sitting here watching this, I'm like, this could work, honestly. Like this is an interesting idea for a world. It's just the writing isn't focusing on the right things, honestly. It feels like most of the time in every scene. I'm just like, you're just cramming down like these prophecies down my throat throughout this entire movie, but it's like I don't even have an idea of what the world I'm currently in right now, and you're trying to tell me what the world used to be, basically.
Like, here's the thing. I broke it down like this in my review. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe I missed a point, but here's how I look at this, though. I said, this is right from my review, how I worded this, like in the beginning, like the kind of prologue they give about like the tumultuous and uneven relationship between like orcs and elves and stuff. I said, it's an alternate present, which is really, when I say alternate present, it's basically Los Angeles as like this graffiti-laden hellhole, too.
Yeah.
That's kind of how they portray it. But I said, it's an alternate present where like humans live amongst 3 other races known as orcs and elves, like you said. And I said, this comes many years after a civil war that suggests after several years of bloody and merciless battle between these 3 parties, everyone went their separate ways to live alongside each other. And then the latter 2 like species lived on as second-class citizens, but they also wound up with their rights somehow without any kind of like legislation following the whole Civil War aspect. So, like, I don't understand. That part's kind of left out, too. It's like, did they just stop fighting one day? Like, how
I guess.
You know what I mean?
That's what I got, too, because, like, they talk about, there used to be a union, and then the union dispersed, and then just the city happened. Just like the class system happened with everything. I was like, well, okay, there's like a big time gap that we're not getting here between these 2 points. What happened there?
And maybe we'll get that in like maybe the 4th prequel.
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand that. That immediately left me confused to begin with. And then first of all, I knew I was in trouble. I'm just gonna say this. I knew this.
It's totally gonna be because they set up like all these prophecies. This is totally gonna be like a spin-off movie with the prophecies.
Oh, there are. I mean, if it gets that far. But I'll tell you, I knew something was bad when one of the first or second title cards of the film, it was brought to me by Trigger Warning Entertainment.
Oh, the friend
that
I was watching this with,
rough.
because my friend did a screening of it, and the friend that was hosting it busted out laughing when he saw that. He's like, "You gotta be kidding me! This is the name of the studio."
Trigger Warning Entertainment. I like already. And then within 10 minutes of the movie, Will Smith says fairy lives don't matter. And it's
that's such a cringy joke too.
I mean, it's like brutal, man. I mean, it's like I haven't seen like humor undercutting the seriousness this bad since The Last Jedi.
I was about to bring that up. Like, Last Jedi like has cringy humor. It feels like that Marvel humor that just doesn't work. This is just bad, timed humor, honestly, whenever like I hear a joke in this movie, or it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and again, I gotta really chalk this up. I think the rotten core of this movie, and I'll kind of leave it at that. We'll take a break after this, or if you want to chime in just briefly on this, and we'll come back to it. I think the rotten core of this movie is its Z-rate script.
Yeah.
I think that's the worst thing about this. And this is why I chalk up most of it's not David Ayer's fault as much as I think it's Max Landis's, because the writing here just sucks.
Most of the script is literally, I counted, there was at least double-digit times, like 15, 20 times, there is just conversations that are just people going with, "Where's the marijuana? I don't know where the wand is. Where's the wand? Where's the wand? I don't know where the wand is. You put that gun down. You put that gun down." Now, here's the thing. This script also throws in a lot of F-bombs in there throughout the entire movie. There is an absurd amount of F-bombs, and it feels like this movie's trying to be edgy, and it's just coming off silly, especially with the way, like, orcs are dressed in this movie to represent a certain culture and everything, like gangs and everything. It just looks silly. And then you have the F-bombs flying all over the place and people just screaming, trying to overact one another. It's
all
just,
this while there's almost
all this while that's trying to happen.
And there's almost too much in here to really dissect, but we're gonna try our best. Be back in about 3 minutes. So what I was saying before we went to break, I said that I think the rotten core, as I put it, of this movie, is really falls on the onus of Max Landis in this movie script. It tries to do way too much in one movie. Again, I think it kind of compiled a bit of a racial allegory, which is really evident in the first 20-25 minutes. Like that, like you really see like the way that orcs, I mean, like, I'll just say it too, the orcs in the film are like, you know, they're written to represent minorities, but most specifically African Americans.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. And
it's cartoonish.
It really is. It's caricaturized and everything. It's off-putting in a way. But anyway, so it's a racial allegory. It's a cop drama. And then it's this movie where like magic and mythical powers are at the center of its universe. So it's got like a lot of different things. And all these things could sustain a movie. You know what I mean? One of those things could sustain a movie. But the way that Max Landis conducts this is just very strange. It comes off as a muchness. What did you think about it overall?
I just thought the entire time it was just silly, and it just got on my nerve near the end too. Because like I was saying, a lot of this movie is just people just screaming at one another, and it's just annoying to me most of the time. That's basically what the script is. There's either three things that are happening in the scene. You're either getting a ton of exposition. Mm-hmm. There's bad jokes, and Will Smith is trying to like be like cool and also like like a real jerk to his partner most of the time, and like trying to show how stupid Joel Edgerton is. That's the other side of the comedy too. Joel Edgerton's like fumbling around because he's like kind of like he's like an orc that's kind of like got that rookie syndrome, like he's scared most of the time, or he's fumbling around, and it's honestly kind of embarrassing. Him with that orc makeup do it because he looks like he's trying, and just him with that orc makeup and him just fumbling around scenes, it's just like, oh my god, I don't know if I can watch this any longer. And then you have the other thing that I was talking about where you got people screaming, people setting up people just screaming and trying to like set up this whole world while that's going on as well.
And like the movie, or I think Landis, I don't want to say the movie, I actually put the onus where it lies. I think Landis is the issue is he's trying to flaunt the versatility of this movie, and it would be wise, in my opinion, to kind of look at like the allegorical aspects of it. Look at the magic. More importantly, look at the magic and mythical aspect. Look at one thing on which to build, and then the rest will come remarkably more easier. Like, I think with a movie like this, when you have something like this, and this is why you don't see a lot of movies with magic, okay, and with mythicism. And when you do,
it's always hard to write in movies.
And when you do, there's usually, when you do see like magic in movies, or like a world like a mythical powers and stuff, when you do see it, they're usually adapted from books. Mm-hmm. And the reason you have that, I believe, is because it's very hard to conceive a screenplay on revolving around magic and revolving around a world. And whereas when you have a book, you have a way to look at it and read it and digest it. And there can be pages long descriptions from the author, just like, speaking as the unseen narrator of what the world consists of and what it looks like. When you get a movie that is going off of just its own, Landis's own mind or whatever, or any screenwriter's own mind, you run the risk that, well, how do I see what this world's about? Well, then you got to employ narration. You got to find a way to explain it, maybe through the character dialogue and stuff, which could come off as very maybe loose, or you don't really see what
crowbarred into.
Yeah, exactly. Or you could, or doesn't wind up getting. Or you could just have monologues, and that's even worse.
That is the worst.
Because then
you get the boo too of, oh, these people died here at this lake. Did you know that? About like 600 times through the movie.
Because then you tell, don't show.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, I understand too that like this is a really challenging thing to write. Like I would not have wanted to write something like this.
Oh yeah.
Especially going off of your own like sort of brainchild here. It's so difficult to kind of conceive a world based on its own merits, where it's not based off a pre-existing property.
I would even try, if I had to write this movie, I would even try setting up like a whole like backstory to the world and everything. I wouldn't even try like this whole like Dark Lord thing that's happening, because like throughout the movie you hear about this Dark Lord is going to be risen again, and like by the end of the movie I don't even know if that was like a thing that was still going on, honestly. Like I just think, because you think like, okay, is the Dark Lord going to show up at any point in this movie, or are we worried about this other elf chick that's chasing Naomi Rapace? And it's just like, you don't really get a feel of like, okay, what is the end goal here? Like if the villain gets the wand, is she destroying New York, or is the Dark Lord coming? I never got a feel of like what would happen if she got the wand.
Yeah, in Los Angeles. Yeah, I knew it. If I had the stakes in like.
I'm sorry, not New York, Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Yeah, I knew what you meant. But like, I couldn't figure out though if like they want, or the stakes here, like you just said. I couldn't figure out like what, because if you think about it, if you're watching like a superhero movie or watching like a movie like this, one of the things you should ask yourself about halfway through is, okay, what happens if the villain succeeds?
Yeah.
Like what happens? Even though it's very unlikely that'll happen. Like what would happen hypothetically if the villain were to succeed? And you don't really get and I think it's really the problem, you don't get a feel for this movie.
No,
you don't really get a feel, because again, the first 25 minutes is like, okay, it's going to be this semi-interesting sort of racial allegory about the rising tensions in our society. Okay, I can live with that. That's actually somewhat interesting. But then you also see that it's pretty hammy, and it's never explored more than the surface. Like the only thing that you're able is like, it's a basic recognition of what the real life parallel is.
Yeah.
Which isn't really smart writing. That's just, okay, I recognize that like this, like orcs are supposed to represent African Americans.
Yeah.
All right, I recognize that. What do you have to say about it?
Nothing. It's just, hey, look, that orc is getting beat by police officers. Okay, you're gonna go into that a little bit more. No, the orcs getting beat by police officers. Isn't that crazy? That's like our world today. It's like that's about as much as you get.
I said, think of a Bad Boys movie. This is how I put it. I said, think of a Bad Boys movie actually written by Michael Bay, not just directed, written by Michael Bay. Okay, because that's the one thing that everybody, even Michael Bay haters too. Okay, I don't like Michael Bay as much as the next person, but he doesn't write his movies. There's other people that are writing them for him. He doesn't write. I think he's maybe written one like short film or something in his whole career. He doesn't write like the Transformers movies. But that's how I thought of this. I said it's like a Bad Boys movie written by Michael Bay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you have like the cop drama, which really is just, it's really just from the point where it's like you said, all the dialogue is just yelling.
Yeah.
Between Jacoby and Ward, between Edgerton and Will Smith, it's just arguing.
Yeah.
And
it's either that or just Will Smith being like, hey, look how dumb you are. Look at me. I'm so cool. I'm Will Smith's character, Ward. But look at my orc friend. He's really dumb. Like that's just basically that's the only two things you get between them. They're either yelling at each other or Will Smith making fun out of Joel Edgerton.
Yes. And it makes you never get a sense of dynamic between these two characters. You never feel like even at the end they like each other.
And even at the end when they're just like, oh, I hate you. Oh, I hate you too, partner. It's like, I legitimately think you guys hate each other. I don't think this is like that friend hate shit like you guys got going on. No, I legitimately think you guys hate each other.
You could have told me. I tell you could have fooled me by telling me that this was like B-roll work print footage of like a Deadshot and Killer Croc spinoff. You probably could have fooled me by telling me that. That's what I mean. Obviously, I mean you're coming off David Ayer. You're coming off Suicide Squad not too long ago, and then you got Will Smith in another movie. Then you got this character that looks like Killer Croc's like deadbeat distant cousin. Mm-hmm. And
you got a lot of people from actually Suicide Squad in this. You have with a prison guard as well as the guy who played El Diablo.
Yeah, I almost forgot. Yeah, that's right. He's in this thing too. Yeah, he's in this thing. Was it Edgar Ramirez? I think his name was.
No, Jay Hernandez.
No, Jay Hernandez. Excuse me. Yeah, Edgar Ramirez.
And then Ike Bar.
He plays the other elf in this.
Yeah,
Ramirez.
Ike Barnhart plays like a cop in this movie.
Yeah, that's right. I was gonna say you do have quite a bit. You could tell this was shot like really closely.
I guess he just scooped him up right after. Squad. Yeah, and the same makeup team because the one thing I'll give this movie is the makeup is actually very good.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's definitely not. I mean, the world is ugly. I will say the world is ugly. I think, and I think the way that this movie kind of looks is ugly, but so is the setting. So it's kind of a moot point. But like the makeup effects on the orcs are actually not bad.
Yeah, maybe he'll win an Oscar too.
But David Ayer too, and I think now you can actually have like tangible sort of weight to say this too between this and Suicide Squad is he's got a really dark way of capturing things.
He does.
He's got a very like dark and sort of gloomy, like melancholic way of looking at things. Like when I first saw, I mean, if you go back to Suicide Squad, like the first trailer of that movie, it made it almost look like kind of a goofy. Nah, I shouldn't say that. It made it kind of look like a vibrant Guardians of the Galaxy like thing, like not as color vomit as that, but like still pretty lively. And then when you actually saw the movie, it was pretty dingy.
Yeah,
like
are you referring back to like the first teaser where they had like the song "The Joke's on Me"?
Yeah, the very first like the teaser and then the subsequent trailer.
If you were to like show a person who didn't know anything about Suicide Squad, you would have shown them that teaser and then the movie right after that, they would say like, was that even the same film? Honestly,
yeah, exactly. I mean, even David Ayers publicly said that movie got butchered in editing. He really said, and that's why everybody was kind of like harping on Ayer. I really wasn't, because I said like I could believe the studio really. Well, I mean, when you really butchered that.
When you hear that a trailer house helped edit your movie, that's not a good sign.
No, it's not. Like, and again, I really think that they just said like, let's be more like this trailer in terms of like the speed of the narrative and stuff. Because I mean, that movie felt so truncated too.
Ayers seems like he could be a very good director, and we've seen it before too. Yeah, it's just that he obviously needs the rest of like everything else about this film to work with him. Like especially the writing here, like it shows it tremendously.
This is pure speculation, but I gotta wonder if like the studios behind like, because I mean, like I said, he's publicly said that the Suicide Squad filmmaking, like the editing was a nightmare. Just in terms of how the studio was doing it and stuff. But like with Bright too, you gotta wonder almost, because he was a total screenwriter before that. He was a pure screenwriter before he came on to do directing movies. You gotta wonder if like the studio doesn't trust him with such big budgets, and like they really don't have too much confidence in what he's what he might be doing. So they try to steer it one way away from his vision and then wind up corrupting the whole project. I have to wonder that. Yeah. Like I almost, if I ever like talked to him or interviewed him, I'd want to
ask him that.
I'd be like, do you ever feel handicapped like when you're directing? Because it comes to, because I mean, I know he's talented. He's written great screenplays.
Fury's one of my favorite war films.
I mean,
honestly.
that too. I would even go back and say, like I said, End of Watch is really good. I thought
End of Watch is very good.
you know,
Yeah,
the very first with Paul Walker and Vin Diesel, the first Fast and the Furious, I think is still is a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
Even from a writing perspective, I think it's a decent movie. So like he in Training Day, of course, needs no introduction. So it's like Ayer's got talent. He's got nothing to prove in that department.
he knows how to write crime or something gritty. He knows how to do it.
But I gotta wonder though if like he feels handicapped by like the way that maybe studios treat him. Again, that's pure speculation on my behalf.
Maybe, yeah, I could totally see it with Netflix's, being that this is Netflix's first blockbuster. I can totally see like them stepping in constantly, ask him to do something like, oh, can you do this with the film instead? I could totally see that with this movie because he got the same thing with Suicide Squad, so I could totally see it happening with this. It's Netflix's first big movie that's a blockbuster. They probably want to make sure this goes smoothly as possible, so they were probably stepping in a lot more than necessary, honestly.
Yeah, possibly. That could very well be the case too. But again, I think Landis has so many ideas here, and Landis is creative. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
He is. I liked Chronicle a lot. I really did. I thought that was very promising for him. I thought it was very promising for Josh Trank, the director. But both men, and again, you could probably make the Josh Trank, the David Ayer argument about being the studio handicapping him when Josh Trank went to direct Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
You could probably make the same argument.
I think the only person that came out of Chronicle that's been succeeding is Michael B. Jordan. That's it.
Probably. I mean, Dane DeHaan too has done he's done a couple good but I mean, he's done Valerian and A Cure of Wellness, which are both fine movies, but they also didn't make any money either. So it's like if you want to judge on that point. But yeah, Michael B. Jordan was probably the one to come out of that film the most.
Yeah, and he also had like the Fantastic Four thing happen to him too with Josh Trank. He's still recovered from that basically.
I never really realized though how much I never realized how much with Chronicle, because I remember when Chronicle came out, I saw it in the theaters. I really liked it.
I liked it too. It was a lot of fun.
I still think it's a really good film, but I remember coming out of it thinking man, this movie just breeds stars and it's breeding good people. But fast forward now we're in 2018, so now surprisingly 6 years since that movie's come out. 6 years later, Trank has only directed one other movie that was mediocre and a fairly big bomb.
Yeah.
Dane DeHaan has done some good stuff, but nothing to capitalize on his star power. Michael B. Jordan's had some excellent roles like Fruitvale Station and stuff like that, and he's been Creed as well. He's done really well. But then you get Max Landis too, who directed who wrote American Ultra, which I thought was awful.
Yeah.
I thought that was.
Bad.
I thought it was just shocking. I think I called it in my review. I think I called it shockingly unfunny.
And then you have the third friend in Chronicle who I don't even know if he's moved on to anything, honestly.
Yeah, really. I was just gonna say I'll go up and just look for completion. But I mean, any other big point you want to make, just generally speaking, or in terms of the quality of this Bright in tone?
Honestly, there's also the villain problem in this movie too. The villain, you don't get a feel for the villain, and the stuff they do in the movie isn't really It's like, oh, our villain is so evil. And I hate to give it away, but I don't care, honestly, at this point. Our villain is so evil, they killed a child. Isn't that crazy? That's about as much evil, development you're going to get with them. That's about as much development you're going to get with them about, how evil they are. It's just they killed a kid. It's like, is that it? I mean, what's their goal here? You don't really know what their goal is. Like I said, you don't really know what the end game is. And that's the problem here with the villain. They don't even have... I don't even know where to go with this, honestly. The villain is just it's just confusing.
The stakes in this are very muddled. The person you were thinking of though in Chronicle was Alex Russell, the other actor. Looking at his filmography, he has not done a whole lot. He had a very minor role in Only the Brave, and I truly, even looking at his picture, I don't totally remember
him.
I don't recall him totally. But I mean, there was also there's only about 3 out of the firefighters in that movie, 8, 9, 10 firefighters.
Yeah.
There was only maybe about 3 or 4 that took precedence.
Yeah.
So he's very easily in the background. SWAT, which is he's one of the main characters on that SWAT TV show, and then he was also on that adult. I don't know if you remember this, because do you watch Adult Swim that much, or do you? I do. Do you remember a couple years ago there was that parody of police procedurals? It was called NTSF SDSUV.
Yes.
He was on that one episode. I hadn't heard that in so long. That's when I saw it. I was like, oh my god, yeah, it's NTSF SDSUV,
yeah,
which stood for National Terrorism Strike Force San Diego Sports Utility Vehicle.
Every night, on Saturday night, I always see what's on Adult Swim, and I'll just record a bunch of stuff. I'm like, that sounds interesting. I gotta check that out, because this usually lets some of my favorite shows, honestly.
Yeah, he was on that though. I completely forgot about that. But anyway, so going back to Bright though, and just kind of we'll talk, maybe bring up one more point, and then we'll take a break and then cut to and then we'll cut to our full ratings and our synopsis of this. Though I was really hoping though that this thing had like a decent verisimilitude or like a decent world to build.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I think I'm most disappointed with this movie, is that it doesn't build a world like I hoped it would. It doesn't build a world that's really, interesting, or a world that really feels like you don't really come out of this even close to knowing about like the laws of the magic in this thing.
No, you don't.
Like that wand too is such
Like,
just a
there's
general
a dragon
cliche.
flying around in the sky in this movie, but fairies are a problem? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Why is the dragon totally fine,
That's
but
another
like
good point.
fairies like in bird feeders, that's going too far.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, and again, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of problems in terms of trying to develop this world too, just working off of its own, just working off of the mind of Max Landis too. So it's like it could, if you try to like build the world through like narration and stuff like that, then then there's a lot of flashbacks and exposition, so that's a negative too in a lot of people's minds. But then how do you explain how the magic of a particular universe works without relying on monologues and narration then? So it's tricky. And I mean, again, I'm not speaking as somebody who's ever written a screenplay before. I think anybody would have a very hard time trying to conceive this.
Yes.
And then too,
That's the one thing I'll give him. It's like Max Landis, like, obviously, this was hard to put together. The one criticism I have towards him was like, it's totally on him. It's just the dialogue, honestly.
It is. Yeah, because, I mean, again, he almost undercut... This is such a problem now, in my opinion, at least. I mean, he undercuts his own legitimacy by, like, putting in a lot of stupid dialogue.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because he thinks that his, so relevant racial drama is so heavy that, like, we need these moments of, like, lighthearted comedy in order to undercut this.
Will Smith calls an orc Shrek, so that means Shrek exists in this world. So it's just like, okay, so that movie series exists in this world where there's magic and everything.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, okay, I really don't have a feeling of this world. It's just kind of strange to think that Shrek exists in that world where there's like orcs living and everything.
And I'll still say this, and then we'll cut to break, and then we'll come back and give our full, wrap-ups on this. But I'll say this, too, is that I think with this movie is that Netflix proves that they're not infallible when it comes to making, like, these own exclusive properties. Like, what I also watched on New Year's Eve? It was the last movie I watched in 2017, and I hadn't seen it yet, and I hadn't seen the previous two, so I watched it, was Pee-wee's Big Holiday, which was the Judd Apatow produced Pee Wee Herman revival.
What'd you think of it?
I liked it.
I liked it a lot too.
I liked it a lot. I think it was a very appropriate movie to make after all this time. The only thing is that going into it though, with Pee-wee's Big Holidays, I thought, like, I wasn't really sure who this was supposed to be for at first. Like, I didn't think this supposed to be for, like, older fans who are probably in their 30s or 40s right now, or even, their 20s and stuff, because Pee-wee's got a lot of different fans. I'm like, I don't know if kids would like this as much, but it felt very appropriate. It felt like it kept the spirit, especially the spirit of Big Adventure.
Yeah.
It felt like it really
felt
kept
like
that
more
spirit.
like Big Adventure than Big Top did.
Big Top Pee-wee, yes. And I will say that. And I mean, Joe
Joe,
Manganiello was
he
great.
kills it.
Was great. And I mean, like, that's the one thing, like, I don't know what it is about, like, Pee-wee, but everybody seems to be in good spirits. Like, they know how to act, even though there's, like, no right or wrong way to act in a Pee-wee movie. Like, all the actors feel like they know how to operate, and it's really good. But anyway, what I'm saying is, Netflix has done really well in terms of bringing, like, a quality original TV content, revivals in the way of, like, Full House and Pee-wee Herman and stuff like that. They know how to do that, and they've done it well. And they've also been a really good cornucopia for great stand-up.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave Chappelle,
who also just released a new thing on Netflix.
Yeah, not too long ago. I know he did. Louis C.K., they've done a really good, like, laundry list of, of comedians and stuff have been on there too. So Netflix has still been a very good powerhouse, but they're also, like, victim to the same sort of things that mainstream Hollywood studios are, which is, like, again, I would say in this case, though, the same problem that was, like, even though I didn't see it, I could just foresee too, in the way, like, The Mummy, like, trying to build a franchise before you got one movie. And then of course there's the Adam Sandler movies as well that Netflix has been doing.
Even the Marvel shows, as much as I like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, I will say Iron Fist and then their team-up movie that they did, Defenders, was pretty disappointing.
Really?
And, like, honestly, I was very disappointed, like, how that turned out. And it kind of succumbs to the same, like, cliches that like run with the same problems that a lot of studios have kind of like falter into those series as well.
Yeah, that's what I really think though is the weak part of this thing too. It's another one of these movies that plans for the future before it even has a present.
Yeah,
that's kind of the way I look at it. It's a movie that prepares for the future without even having an adequate present. Gonna give our final thoughts on the movie Bright, and I'm looking forward to hearing, Joe, kind of your wraparound of it. I think the last thing I need to bring up about this movie, is really the soundtrack, which plays more like a playlist. Really.
Like Suicide Squad soundtrack.
Yes, I mean, well I think I might be wrong, but all the money in this, or all the songs in this movie are original songs.
They are actually
by like Migos, Meek Mill, Ty
Camila
Dolla Sign.
Cabello, I think made one too.
He did. I was gonna say Machine Gun Kelly. You know, and there's a lot of others original music in this, and some of it works. Other times it doesn't.
For me, I glossed over it. I was like, it's just another soundtrack at this point to me.
I wouldn't mind renting it just to hear it, because I like soundtracks with like disproportionately hip hop music. Like Fate of the Furious was a great soundtrack last year.
Sure.
I mean, but like this, it kind of felt like almost thunderous in this movie, like the way it kind of came in and stuff. It felt like it was, again, trying to be edgy, trying to be, like ham-fist its way in, you know what I mean? Like in terms to the screenplay. Give your final thoughts, though, on Netflix's first blockbuster, Bright, though.
It's disappointing. It's very disappointing. I was very looking forward to this when they announced this a while back, and they had Will Smith and David Ayer was directing. I was like, wow, this seems like a great lineup. Honestly, what could be potentially a good first blockbuster run. And just seeing it come out of the gate and just falling on its face, it's just disappointing. As me and Steve talked about it, the script to me is the biggest issue with this movie. Whether it be them trying to set up too much in the storyline, or just how the dialogue is handled with poor humor and just yelling over one another, and a lot of overacting from a lot of people too. The performances are okay. I felt like Joel Edgerton was the only one who was really trying. Will Smith may have been trying. It was just probably the material he was given wasn't really that great. Everybody else in this movie to me is either just sleeping through it or just overacting, honestly. The makeup, as we talked about, was good. It's probably the best thing about this movie. I loved seeing the little like twitches on like Joel Edgerton's face. Like whenever he would hear something, you would see the ears actually start to like move. If he could smell like where somebody was at, you would see his like nostrils flare up. It was nice little touches. I don't know if it was CG or actually like prosthetics that did that, but it was nice little touches that I enjoyed. But as Steve and I talked about, I mean, like at the end of the day, I don't care about any of these characters, because I don't know what's happening in this world. I don't know. I don't get a feel for this world. I don't get a feel for these characters. And anytime I'm with them, I'm being either annoyed, and I just want to like honestly just stop watching the movie. So for me, it's not 1 star, but it comes close. It's 1.5 for me.
1.5 for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I give it the same rating. I'll just say 1.5 out of 4 stars. It's a thing that it's bloated to begin with. It's a classic case, or at least what's becoming a classic case, of a movie that there's too much in one installment. Bright tries to be the origin story, the first movie, the second movie, and even part of the third movie, all in one movie.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. I also think that like the edginess of this thing, the tonal shifts that come about, the fact that by the end of the movie, Joel Edgerton and Will Smith, they do not feel like really strong characters. They feel very flimsy. They feel like they could go either way. They don't feel like these stable sort of like anchors to this franchise too, or to this franchise to be. And I guess another problem I think with the movie is that it's like, it doesn't take itself too seriously, which isn't a problem, but like it's also not like by any means kind of like zippy, or by any means like, sort of easygoing in any way. You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't have a tone, honestly.
It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't have like any kind, again, it doesn't have like a really strong anchor, but it also, again, doesn't have really any kind of weight to it. Like, you can not be serious, that's fine, but it also doesn't come off as very is like self-deprecating in any way, or like, you know, almost satirical. It doesn't have that element either. So what you're left with is a movie that just kind of picks and chooses what it focuses on, and picks and chooses the tone it uses to focus on things. That's kind of the way that I summarize it.
Yeah.
I think that it's got moments of creativity, like I think like most of Landis's movies do, like most of Max Landis's scripts. They have moments of creativity, but they're so weighed down by either things that aren't funny, elements that just aren't very interesting, and stuff that really doesn't hold up to the weight of the movie. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. I think it's a disappointing first outing for Netflix's blockbuster. The other thing, though, I say, and I know it's not a blockbuster in the conventional sense, but like the way that people talk it up, because this movie's $90 million. I didn't find that out until the end of it. I thought it was more. I thought, just assuming it was more. But like, I know the two are incomparable just based on the audience and like their mainstream appeal. But I mean, Okja wasn't cheap. Okja was $50 million. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That wasn't cheap. And then, I mean, that was a much riskier investment, I think, than this.
And a much better movie.
And a way better movie, absolutely. You know, but I give Bright, I'm in the same ballpark as you. I give Bright 1.5 stars. Pretty disappointed by this thing. Did not really get out of it much, or at least, you know, I mean, as far as a sequel goes, too, because they've already greenlit a sequel. A sequel is coming. Whether it's coming next year or the year after, probably, I would think 2019. I would think that they're going to.
Is David Ayer coming back as well?
He is going to come, or he is, from what I understand, he's in talks. Will Smith's definitely coming back. I think that they pretty much need to get the same. They need to get the same people. I mean, unless you're going to get. I mean, for a writer standpoint, unless you're going to get somebody
if you don't get Will
to
Smith or Joel Edgerton again, it's like, what's the point of even making a sequel?
It's
honestly?
true, you know. Like, and again with Landis too. I mean, this is tough too, because it's like I wouldn't suggest. You know, it's hard to say that like somebody who I don't think did a good job one time, you know, or like, you know, for a big moment should get, you know, the same gig again. But at the same time, like, this is so much Landis's movie, you can tell. Like, it's all his ideas, that I don't think you could bring another screenwriter on. I think you just kind of have to ride it out with him now. You know,
maybe you could turn it around. Honestly,
at the end, maybe. I mean, there's a chance. I'll watch Bright too.
I would too. I want this universe, because it is a cool idea for a world. It's just executed terribly.
It is. That I cannot deny that right there.